The Stanley Cup Final is finally here and underway. We'll talk about our predictions and what we expect to see. Plus, free agency is just around the corner. We'll have that on a deep dive with Mitch Marner and more coming up on this week's NHL Squad.
You are talking puck with the NHL Squad Show, sponsored by Game Time. From the Oilers to the Stars, Golden Knights, and the Panthers, the Rangers, Avalanche, and yes, even the Maple Leafs. The Locked On Podcast Network brings together all its local experts to provide the scoops, breakdowns, and comprehensive looks at all the NHL, with plenty of trash talk to go with it. Don't miss the hard hits and glove-dropping hot takes on the Locked On NHL Squad Show. It's time to drop the puck.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the NHL Squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another wild week across the National Hockey League. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. We have got a great panel here today. David Morassutti of Locked On Leafs and Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings are here with us. And gentlemen, the Stanley Cup Final is here. It's a rematch. We are recording this before Game 1. Let me hear what you expect to see in this series and maybe eventually who you think is going to win and why.
Well, I'm expecting this to be an absolute bloodbath. I think these are two teams that now know each other quite well. And I think if you're the Oilers, sour taste in your mouth, right? Almost made the 3-0 comeback, only to lose in Game 7. The Panthers have been on another impressive run this year, but I think these are two teams that are really pretty much set for a collision course. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I'm typically not that excited when we see a rematch, of the Super Bowl or whatever. But I also can't really look at these two teams and not say it certainly seems like the two best teams are meeting. And if you're a fan of a sport, how can that not be a compelling matchup? And I do kind of feel like this is a little more interesting than your typical kind of a rematch. There's so many different things that you can point to that make this seem like it's going to be another classic. And certainly last year was a little odd because you got Florida jumping out to the 3-0 lead and everyone saying, oh, it's over. And then here comes Edmonton and forces a Game 7. And now you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Is this going to be one of the epic choke jobs of all time? Turns out that doesn't happen, but it's a great Game 7, a 1-goal game. Could have gone either way. This time around, they're two really similar teams, as far as not only what they were a year ago, some changes, but not huge. I mean, I guess you could point to Marchand being a big name that's now involved, but the core of both teams are pretty much the same. I think there was a stat that each team has had 19 different goal scorers so far in the playoffs. The only real kind of big difference is this time the Oilers have home ice. Is that going to be the difference if it does go a Game 7? So I think there's a lot of things that are pretty interesting. You could say on the one side, well, Edmonton's the hungrier team. Well, you can also say, well, but Florida knows how to win the big game, where Edmonton hasn't done that. So the only thing I would really be surprised at is if this series doesn't go at least 6. I think it'll go 7. I want it to go 7. But if it's a short series this time around, that would be the only thing I think I would be pretty surprised at.
Yeah, I have to agree. I expect it to go 6 or 7 games. And I think you have a couple of questions that pop into my mind. Let's start with this one. How do the Edmonton Oilers react to the physicality of the Florida Panthers?
Yeah, this Oilers team has been banged up. Like, you look at Matthias Ekholm just came back in round 2, and he's been dealing with something. Connor Brown, he's been banged up and dealing with, I'm not too sure what he's been dealing with. Like, guys are, this happened to them last year too, right? You just kind of lose steam a bit. That's what the Panthers do, though. They wear you down. So that's probably the one thing that concerns me a bit about Edmonton is they have found ways to win in these playoffs, but they haven't gone up against a team, I don't think, that's as physically demanding as the Panthers. And I think that's gonna, yes, Vegas was physical, but there's like physical, and then there's what the Panthers do. It's just a totally different beast altogether. Like they love when a series goes long too, because they feel like that they can just, as the series goes along, they just continue to wear players down. Like I think back to that clip of Paul Maurice last year in the playoffs, right? He demands it out of his players, and the players know, and if that's how they play, it's drilled into them. So if you're Edmonton, you're not going to be able to match. I don't think they're going to be able to match that physicality, but they got to be ready for it. They got to be ready for whatever Florida's going to throw their way.
I think that's fair. I also think they certainly aren't going to be surprised by it. They know exactly what they're in for. Pretty healthy, both teams, pretty healthy considering. And I would say for Edmonton, as far as being worn down, their path to this final, not all that grueling, right? They didn't have a game 7 in any of the three previous rounds. Their toughest test was probably in round 1 against the Kings. So they've really impressed me of how they've taken care of their business, moved on, especially, just like, Toronto, or I should say not Toronto, sorry, Florida, they went down 2-0, right? Came back to win. Sorry, David. But it happened to my team too. The Oilers were down 2-0 in LA, and they came back and won. So those are the two defining moments, I think, for both teams, was falling behind 2-0 and then storming back to be able to win those two series.
I'm going to mention 2 players I'd like your take. We have Brad Marchand and Corey Perry, one from each team.
Both, Eddie and I have great admiration for these 2 players.
Yeah, it's a good call, man. It's a real good call. Corey Perry is definitely top 3 of all-time hated players for me, being a mighty Duck of Anaheim from back in the day, but still finding a way to hurt the Kings. But he's been, I have to admit, he's been amazing. He's been a marvel. I mean, you could say, well, he just goes to the front of the net and good things happen. But if it was that easy, everybody would do it, right? So he certainly has made a very, very good career of being that kind of a player. And obviously, Perry's a former MVP. Some people might forget. So it wasn't just that kind of a guy his entire career. But Marchand does seem to be the guy that comes up with the bigger goals and the bigger moments, it seems to me. So, but they're certainly 2 sides of a different coin, but guys that can play that role, try and get you off your game, laugh in your face as they score, a power play goal because they've drawn a penalty, something like that. But it's amazing. Corey Perry, as much as I hate him, he certainly has had an amazing career, still going.
The Leafs thought this year with Boston way out of the picture that whole thing was going to be in the past for them. What did that team have to do? They traded Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers. And I said to myself, I know exactly what's going to happen. Leafs are going to play the Panthers in the playoffs, and Brad Marchand is going to find some way to get one last laugh at the Leafs. And he did exactly that. It was at the time, it was a conditional 2nd round pick that's now become a 1st round pick. But at the time, I'm like, there's collusion. There's collusion going on right here, because this is exactly what the Panthers and Bruins were cooking up. But Brad Marchand, I'll give him credit, did not have the greatest regular season. He dealt with injuries. Just not as productive the last couple of years. And then come playoff time, it's been a totally different story for him. He has really excelled with the Panthers. I mean, he fits that team to a T. He's a pain in the rear. He's very productive, and the moment doesn't seem too big for him. Like, they asked him about playing in game 7 and how a high stakes game. He's like, these guys went to the Cup Final last year. Why are we talking about game 7 of a round 2 being high stakes for this team? Like, just the confidence and the way that his aura is exactly what this Panthers team is all about. It was like a match made in heaven. Vomiting, like it's a virtual vomit from myself actually talking about this. But yeah, he's the Corey Perry for this year's Panthers team, right? In a lot of ways. I think Perry has been a little more surprising, especially in the moments that he has really thrived, and how obviously his age. but Marchand's not too far behind.
All right, so we're recording this before game one. By the time it airs, will be after game one. But guys, let me hear your prediction. Who wins in how many games and why?
Oh, you go first, Eddie.
Well, I've got a couple of reasons behind my madness. I'm picking the Oilers in 7. Part of it is because they have home ice advantage this time, and I think they're 6-1 at home going into the finals on home ice. I think maybe it's better, a little better than that, but anyway. And then also I've picked against them the entire postseason, so I'm hoping that my mojo will flip this and that the Panthers will win. But yeah, I'm picking the Oilers in 7. Like I said, in all seriousness, I've doubted them. They've answered my skepticism every time. So I wouldn't be shocked or surprised if they did it once again. And I think there is something to the focus they have this time around. They're not just happy to be there, getting so close and not getting it a year ago. And I just think that's going to be a little bit of an edge for them. But I mean, it's a toss-up almost to me. But I'll pick Edmonton in 7.
I'm going Oilers in 6. I don't think they want a game 7 against this Panthers team. They know they don't want a game 7 against this Panthers team. The only reason I'm still iffy on the Oilers, like Stuart Skinner was excellent in round 2, but we have also seen him look like an AHL goalie in these playoffs. And the Panthers took Frederik Andersen, who had incredible numbers in rounds 1 and 2, and made him look like an NHL goaltender in round 3. So if Stuart Skinner's not up to his game, this is going to be a tough one for the Oilers. But I just think this year they just hit. I'm sorry, Eddie, but after they were down against LA and they just a switch flipped, and they just found a way to go on this impressive run. I give them a lot of credit for it because they beat some really good teams along the way, right? They beat LA, really good defensive team. Probably a close comparable to what the Panthers are. Vegas, we know that's a cup contending team every year. Dallas, who was supposed to be the team in this series, they found a way and they beat one of the better goalies in the playoffs. So I think they know they went through a tougher journey this year, in my opinion, than last year. I think that has them ready for this year.
All right, we shall see. I'm going with Panthers in 7 because I think Bobrovsky gives them a slight edge between two very evenly matched teams, but we'll see how this all plays out. I think we all agree it's going to be one heck of a series. We've got a lot more to discuss on this week's Squad Show. Free agency is less than a month away, and the big name in free agency is Mitch Marner. David, I know you'll have some insight into that. We'll have that and a lot more next on the Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. I mean, I love eating out, but not at the expense of my financial well-being. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you could use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So free agency is approaching. The biggest name out there, according to everybody, Mitch Marner, formerly of your Toronto Maple Leafs, David. First of all, how much money do you think Marner's going to get as an AAV? And what do you think he's going to look for in a team to go to?
Yeah, that's the big one for me is what does he really want? Does he want to go to a contending team? Does he want to go to the team that's going to offer him the best deal or the best environment for himself? I think, like, yeah, is there a chance he can come back to Toronto? There's always a chance. But the thing is, I think he wants a change in scenery. He wants to go somewhere maybe he's not going to get as scrutinized as he has been in Toronto. Like, the guy put up 102 points, and people are kicking him out the door in Toronto, right? So I think he just has had enough of it. So in terms of a contract, well, everyone brings up the Mikko Rantanen deal as like no one could go above Mikko Rantanen. Well, Mikko Rantanen didn't go to free agency. Mikko Rantanen is not going to have teams courting him, throwing a lot of money at him. If he was if Mikko Rantanen went to free agency, he probably would be commanding a pretty decent deal. I think Marner, that number is going to start with a 12. Now, how close it gets to 13, I don't know if a team's going to give him 13. I think that's a little too rich, but he's going to be in the 12s. I think the Athletic had it projected at like 12.9, which, God, just make it 13. Why are you doing a 12.9? But I think he's in the 12 to 12.5 range. It's not that much more than what Rantanen got. And let's not forget that Rantanen did also get the extra year. He got the 8 years. Marner's only could get a max of 7 on the free agent market. So that's where I think the extra cap, the extra money goes into making up for that 8th year he would not get in free agency.
I'm really fascinated about the Mitch Marner thing. I think he's done a great job of not tipping his hand in any way about where he might be leaning. Let those teams negotiate against each other, get that price up as high as you can go. But I'm really curious what he wants, and I don't know that he has really revealed anything. And how does he? What happens when he gets to a place where it's about him, but the pressure is not the same, right? Can he thrive in that kind of environment? Does he take a step back under that kind of a pressure, being the guy, or is he just the same guy that we've seen so far? So I don't have an answer for any of that, but I'm really fascinated to see where he goes, how high the price is, and how he responds to that change of scenery. I'm really interested to see what that looks like.
David, do you think he can be the guy on a team? I mean, he was one of the big four in Toronto. So the pressure wasn't, there's a lot of pressure in Toronto in general, but the pressure wasn't just on him. If he has to carry a team offensively, do you think he takes a step back, as Eddie was saying, or do you think he handles that in stride?
I think part of him wants to be known as the guy. You don't go to free agency and ask for a boatload of money if you don't want to be the guy as well, right? He's been stuck in a way in Austin Matthews' shadow, right? He was drafted before Austin Matthews, but he came in at the same time as Austin Matthews, and Austin Matthews had the aura being the first overall pick and all that. He was never going. He at times there was a bit of back and forth of who was the franchise guy and all this. But at the end of the day, it's always been Austin Matthews. The Leafs had always prioritized him, especially when it comes to contracts and all those things. They made Austin Matthews the captain. I think that pretty much tells you how much they viewed Austin Matthews as the guy over Mitch Marner. So I think wherever Mitch Marner goes, he's either going to be the guy or he is going to be pretty close to whoever is the guy in the team he's going to. I think that it all depends on where he goes. If he goes to a team that doesn't have that established star, he goes right in and he is the head honcho.
Eddie, how much does it concern you? If you were an NHL general manager, how much does the playoff struggles that Marner has had concern you?
It's legit. But I think you also have to balance out the fact that how many players like him really become available. It's so rare, especially at his age. It's worth the risk. And, I get that he has not scored the big goal for Toronto. He did have the game-winning goal, right? In the Four Nations, I do believe was that was the case. That's a pretty big goal in a big moment. Not saying he was the star of that team, but you know what I'm saying. So And I think he was a point per game player in the playoffs this year too. So it's not as quite as bad as I think it's being portrayed. Although I do get what people are saying. If you are going to make him the highest paid player in the game, or if you're going to put him in that category, shouldn't that guy be that type of a guy that's going to get you at least one game-winning goal in a key series, something like that? So, but I think it's worth the risk. Like I said, I just don't think players like him become available that often. Is he going to be another 100-point player in a different situation? I don't know, but he's certainly going to still command, around 90 points, I would think, even if he goes to, I don't know, Carolina or something like that. So, yeah, does it concern me? Yes, because I'm going to be paying a lot of money for that guy. But do I go into it with my eyes open as far as what he's done in his past? I'm willing to make the assumption that he's going to make our team better, even if he isn't the guy.
Where do you think are some of the better places for him to end up, or where he's more likely to end up?
Oh,
I hate to say this. I could see him going to Vegas. They're so aggressive. The things they do, I don't know how they'll make it work, but I could see them doing something to land a big player like him and change their fortunes. I don't see them as a team or an organization that stands pat very often. And I just would not be surprised at all to see the Vegas Golden Knights go out there, be aggressive like they always are, make it work somehow, and get a player like him. And he would be so embraced in a place like Vegas where they love the Golden Knights so much. It's their team. It's not a team coming from somewhere else. That's their team, and they've embraced that team that way. And look, Jack Eichel was a guy who needed a change of scenery. He goes there, is embraced, has the best years of his career. I could see Mitch Marner being that kind of a guy too.
yeah. I mean, they could just tell Mark Stone, "Hey, can you just take September to June or May off? May off."
They have done that before, I think.
Rumor has it, yeah.
they're not afraid to swing big. I think there's one place that intrigues me. They're the kind of the front runner on FanDuel right now. That's Chicago. That's a team that craves a superstar to go alongside. Connor Bedard has not had anyone to support him. Imagine Mitch Marner feeding Connor Bedard pucks. Like, Chicago will load up the Brink truck and go right to Mitch Marner's house to have him play with Bedard. So, like, if that's one scenario I could see. Vegas is just the intriguing one because it seems like the right situation for Marner. He doesn't have to be the guy, but he will be one of the guys. And they embrace, like, I think, was it Eichel when he came to Vegas? They had the marching band come and meet him at the airport. Mitch Marner will love that. Like, I think that's the sort of thing he craves. Like, they don't turn on their players there. They don't, and he can kind of go a little under the radar in Vegas. In a way, I'm sure players get a notice around town and stuff. So yeah, Vegas is not afraid to make those moves, and they'll trade a couple players to go on out of Mitch Marner. They're not afraid to do that. So I would say Chicago and Vegas would be my two teams.
All right, we'll see how this plays out. There's going to be a lot of talk between now and July 1st when we most likely find out where Mitch Marner is going. There are a lot of other big names in free agency. We're going to go over some of those coming up next on the Squad Show. So, gentlemen, there are a lot of other big name free agents out there. Anybody in particular catching your eye? Eddie, let's start with you.
Well, I think it's also fascinating to see what Sam Bennett might command in free agency. There's that report that there's some team out there that claims they're going to give him $10 million a year. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he is, if you are a team that feels like you are some sort of a key piece away, there's no question that in the biggest games, he always seems to find a way to be a factor in it, whether it's a goal, whether it's running into a goalie, or whatever the situation might be. he always shows up in those big games. Of course, you have to get to those big games for him to be a factor, and you want to pay all that money for a guy that if you don't get to those big games, it kind of is a waste of money. So I'm fascinated to see that. But there's no question that, in the big games and the big moments, he is a guy that seems to always be able to come up with a impact play, whether it's a hit, whether it's drawing a penalty, whether it's scoring a goal that can make a difference. And if you're really looking for that kind of a guy, and if you think that's the most important thing that helps you to, be a contender for a Stanley Cup, maybe he is worth the money.
Remember when Sam Bennett couldn't do a pull-up at the NHL scouting combine? And now he's going to be a top attracted free agent. It's kind of crazy how those things always turn out. But yeah, he's going to be one of those players that necessarily doesn't necessarily put up a lot of points, but he does the other intangible things, and intangibles always get a little bit of a bump on the pay, right? So if a team wants to overpay him, good on Sam Bennett. Part of me still wonders if he's still holding out for Florida to bring him back, because I think sometimes a player just likes the situation, don't want to give it up.
I mean, it's a good situation there too. I mean, they win. He can just go there, do his thing. They've got nice weather, no state income tax. I mean, there's a lot of attractive things about being in Florida, so I get it.
No doubt about that. How about Aaron Ekblad, right shot defenseman? When he's healthy, we know what he can do. Right shot defensemen are tough to come by. How do you think he'll do in the open market?
I mean, those players are like, you look at the market, it stinks for defensemen. There aren't many top pair defensemen, especially right shot defensemen out there. That's why I think like a team, the only thing you got to be concerned about with Aaron Ekblad, I mean, this year he had the suspension for the performing enhancing substance. That's a separate thing. He has had a hard time staying healthy in his career.
Yep.
You got to be very careful when you go and get a player like that. Like, to me, I can't see him getting more than what he's currently getting. He's getting 7.5, maybe 8. I don't think a team goes more than $8 million per year for him. But I think there'll be quite a few teams that will want his style. You watch him in these playoffs. You talk about players that are just a pain in the rear to go up against. Aaron Ekblad is one of those players. He's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He might cross the line a little bit, but he brings that stability that teams crave on the back end. So he's going to be one of those players where it's a bit of buyer beware, but you also don't want to miss the opportunity to go and get someone like him.
Two more names I want to throw out as we are starting to run low on time. Brock Besser, Nikolai Ehlers.
Ehlers is going. Oh, sorry, you'll go first, Eddie.
No, I was maybe say the same thing. I think Ehlers is going to stay in Winnipeg. Things that I've heard is that he's close to a deal to re-sign there, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. For Brock Besser, I know there's a fit in LA for him. They're looking for a right shot, right winger that can help out on the power play, be a little bit more consistent than what they've had in that situation. So there is an opportunity there. I think LA is very interested. So yeah, I think he's going to be definitely in demand.
Yeah, I think Ehlers would be, if he were to hold out, he'd probably be the second option for a lot of teams that missed out on Mitch Marner. But if Winnipeg offers him exactly what he wants, I mean, that's a team that's still contending, right? They won the President's Trophy. It's hard, it's a situation that sometimes it's hard to leave it. But Brock Besser is a very fascinating one because, yeah, I think a lot of teams that are looking for goal scoring, he's in my opinion, he's probably the best goal scorer available on the market, like pure goal scorer. And he's 28, so he's in the prime of his career right now. If a team is struggling on the power play or just needs someone with a good shot, Brock Besser's the guy. I think LA, yeah, they're always starving for goals. there's a lot of teams I think that would love to add a Brock Besser. Like I'm trying to think, like I don't know how much cap space Nashville has, but they struggle to score. They're not afraid to go after guys in free agency. I think they would be a team. At one point, I thought about Minnesota because that's his home state, right? Maybe he wants to go closer to home, and they're always looking for goals. Someone to pair with Kaprizov too. So those are kind of like the three teams I would look at for Brock Besser.
It will be interesting to see where both of those players go. I want to thank everyone for making the Squad Show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank David Morassutti of Locked On Leafs, Eddie Garcia of Locked On LA Kings for joining me today. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode of the NHL Squad Show.